just have to keep doing it. And, and there are ways through all these issues. You just, in one way doesn't work, you try something else. And that's why we couldn't start this project. I couldn't get a grant from the NIH to start this work. I couldn't even get a grant from CERM, which is a stem cell agency, to start this work. So the money that she raised started this work. And then we got more money after that. And then when I did the fundraising to start the company, it was so easy.
Hey guys, Dr. Sinicropi here. Excited. We are here at the Society for Brain Mapping 15th Annual Conference, and I've got two absolutely special guests for you right now. We have Dr. Jeanne Loring, and we have Jenifer Raub with us today, and we're very excited to listen to stories on what is going on in treatment for Parkinson's disease. Now, Parkinson's disease affects a lot of people worldwide. We're going to talk about that. The statistics are alarming, and people are looking for help. I had the opportunity and privilege of sitting down and listening to them talking about Parkinson's disease and the research that is going on in the world of stem cells. And stem cells is something that people really struggle to wrap their minds around. There's been some negative connotations on those words, and I can tell you as a physician myself, I could not be more excited about where stem cells are going, especially when it's in the hands of two people that I'm sitting with right now. So on that note, I'm going to start with Jeanne. I'll call you Jeanne and not doctor the whole time. We'll just keep it nice and relaxed. Can you tell us about, there's a lot, and we can't get into all, where you are right now and the research you're working on and what really inspired you to go down that path?
I think my main skill in science is stem cells, which are absolutely amazing cells. They can give rise, the ones I work on are called induced pluripotent stem cells, so you need to learn what that means. Induced means they're made from our skin cells, and they're pluripotent, which means they can develop into any cell type in the body. So it's not a really old technology, but it was developed first in 2007. Just take a little bit of somebody's skin and grow it in a culture dish, and then you can do something called reprogramming to turn those cells into induced pluripotent stem cells. And then you have a DNA matched stem cell that you can turn into whatever cell type you need to use. I've been doing this work for many, many years, and I decided to take this in the direction of a treatment for Parkinson's disease, which is what I talked about today. Parkinson's disease is, as he mentioned, is a very serious problem, and it is, there are many people, at least 1 million people in the US who have it. It's caused by the loss of a particular cell type in the brain. The place in the brain is called the substantia nigra, and if you want to know what that means, it means dark substance, black substance. That's because that part of the brain is actually kind of darker than the rest. And it contains dopamine neurons. If you've heard of dopamine, it's one of those feel-good neurotransmitters. Those dopamine neurons connect with another part of the brain called the striatum. And when people get Parkinson's disease, it's loss of that connection. About half of their neurons will have died by the time they're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And there's no going back. Once these cells are dead, they're dead. They don't come back. The way people are treated now is with a compound that forces those cells to make more dopamine. So as those cells die off, they are still pumping out dopamine and connecting with the other part of the brain. But gradually, with time, all of that is lost. So, stem cells. Okay, we're good to go. Stem cells. So here we have on one side, we have a cell type that's missing in the brain. On the other hand, we have a cell type that we can make from anybody that we can turn into dopamine neurons. And so by making dopamine neurons from induced pluripotent stem cells, that means we can make the exact cells that are missing in the brain from every person with Parkinson's disease. And then the challenge is, how do you have those help that person? And over many years, and many people besides myself, there have been surgical techniques developed to put those cells into the right part of the brain so that they grow and thrive. So the project that I'm working on now, I started many years ago, 2011, which Jenifer can tell you a little bit about how we started. But we took it straight into a biotechnology company, which is called Aspen Neuroscience. It's in San Diego. Aspen Neuroscience was named for the trees that grow back after a forest fire. So it's a metaphor for regeneration, which I think is really apt, because that's exactly what we're doing. So I did this work as an academic at Scripps Research Institute, and then I founded a company, the company Aspen Neuroscience, and they've taken it from there. And they've actually been putting these cells into people's brains for about the last year, in fact, almost exactly a year. They've treated 8 people. And so far, there have been no negative effects. This is what's called a phase 1 trial, which is what the FDA asks us to do before we go further.
With fast track designation.
Yeah, well,
that's important.
Yeah, well, we have fast track will make it us get faster to actually having this be accepted by the FDA. So they've, as I said, they've treated 8 patients. Everybody is fine. And I can't tell you about how they're doing now because I'm not allowed to, but I'm kind of impressed. And the outcome measures, which are really a measurement by their neurologists of how well they're doing, those are, as each person reaches a 1-year mark, then all those measures that we've been measuring will be reported. And if they look good, and I'm pretty damn sure they will, then we'll move on to the next phase of the trial, which is called a phase 2 or maybe a phase 3. Sort of depends on how the FDA feels about our results. If we get beautiful, fantastic results, we might just skip a stage and move on so that we can get this to people quicker.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautifully said. So a couple things, people, when they think about Parkinson's disease and L-DOPA and things, I always think about Robert De Niro in the movie Awakenings,
Yes.
which talks about the discovery of that molecule that treated these patients. And for those of you that haven't seen Awakenings, it's really it's a heartfelt, inspiring movie that shows the beginnings of where we were really trying to tackle, Parkinson's disease with really, with science.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I want to say is, as you just spoke beautifully, is that you're in a room. So people do. So when you come to a meeting like this, Society for Brain Mapping, it's not the typical people in a room. I mean, these are some really smart people. Mm-hmm. And after you guys spoke, I spoke to different people that were in the room, and they were so impressed by how strong your data was and what your technology was doing. And we were all frustrated in the fact that it has taken so long, because I saw dates on that thing that you have been working on, stem cells. You mean like 2000? I saw something 2002 or 2000. Yeah.
First year, yeah.
And so I think a lot of the American, how antsy the American public is. Like we like if you say, "Oh, this thing works, it's going to make your Parkinson's better," and I tell you, great news, in 2029, you could be the first patient that's actually, and hopefully it's a lot before that. I'm not saying that, but just the way we think about things and things being slowed down. And I understand there's regulatory rules because, and we talked about some of the disasters that have happened with other.
Yeah, we really don't want to talk
Yeah, we
about
don't
those.
even want, let's talk about,
Let's talk about the positive aspects of regulatory agencies.
But they're designed to really make sure, especially when you're replicating cell lines. Mm-hmm. There's a lot, people. I'm 100% for it. I'm very pro, but there are people. There's just ethical considerations and other things, and people get really antsy with those things. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy that there is a strict, and stringent regulatory guideline framework around that, because otherwise it'd be the Wild West and everybody would just be doing whatever and injecting whatever into anybody.
I agree.
It's a disaster.
And a lot of people think the FDA is holding everything up, and honestly, since I started working with them, they are the most gracious people.
Yeah.
They essentially have been asking us, people like me, to tell them about this so that they can understand it, because this is brand new. They've never had to look after something like this. And they have gave a talk to the FDA last week because they really wanted to hear about how this, what they needed to know about this technology so that they can feel comfortable in deciding that it's safe, assuming we show it to them that it's safe. I think what he alluded to, maybe I didn't make this a strong enough case, is that since we can make these induced pluripotent stem cells from any individual, we put their own cells back in their brains. And what this means is that they don't need to have immunosuppression like you would have if you had a kidney transplant or a heart transplant. And that means there's one less risk, because having your immune system repressed is not a good thing, and you shouldn't do it unless it's really necessary.
And just going back, I'm going to tie it up, and then I'm going to get to Jenifer here in a second. The interesting thing, again, going back to the regulatory stuff, is that people have to just understand that the reason that these pathways are so stringent is because not only from there, but also with societies like this, we really have to cut through the noise and say what's real and what's not. Because when people get a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, or they get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or cancer, or they have a brain tumor, they're vulnerable.
Yes.
They're very vulnerable. So if anyone comes out, right, if people just start making commercials and saying, hey, take this pill, come to our institution and have this procedure, people, right, you're just looking for hope, and you're giving them hope. And that's why, I think that conventions like this really bring together really the brightest people in the world that are making like real impacts, where a body of your peers is saying, this is real work. This isn't like she's some rogue person doing random cells and promoting all these things and travel overseas to come get our cells, and we'll fix your Parkinson's in 3 weeks and you'll be perfect and just cut us a check. Yeah. So let's get to, so Jenifer, your story's, amazing. You were diagnosed with Parkinson's. And instead of just kind of sitting on the sidelines, you're making a massive difference and impact by raising money. Because as we all know, as scientists, we could all have the greatest ideas in the world. You can't do it if there's no funding. And so, can you tell us, how did you get involved in this project? How did you guys meet? Kind of a little bit about the story behind that, and then you've been able to raise a huge amount of dollars. And how'd you get all this done?
I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I've had it for just about 18 years now. And when I was diagnosed, my whole world changed. It's not a fun diagnosis to get, but I wasn't sure what Parkinson's was, so I did a little research into that part. Couldn't find answers. Really difficult to find answers. And I went to doctor after doctor trying to get a second, third, fourth, fifth, and I was told I had a multitude of different things. And then finally I had a DAT scan and was confirmed I had Parkinson's. So it was like, now what do you do? And I went looking, coincidentally, when I was in my 20s, I was fascinated with neurotransmitters for some reason. And I read everything I could get my hands on in Dr. Kurt Fried's work at that time on Parkinson's and implanting fetal tissue in the brain. And when it worked for one patient, 27 years, no medication.
Amazing.
And but it was just fascinating. And then there was a stem cells in the news nonstop about that time, at least my news that I was paying attention to. And I went looking for a stem cell solution for Parkinson's. And I got lucky. I met Dr. Loring in her lab, went to a presentation. And when I was going into the lab, again, I had no information. And I used 2 canes and could barely crawl into the lab. I mean, it was tough just to get down that hallway. Heard her presentation, and I knew I'd found it. My husband and I left. And on the way home, we stopped at a friend's house who does a lot of fundraising in the San Diego area. He's very supportive, dear friend, and he says, well, tell me about it. What are you talking about? We explained the Jeanne's work. He goes, I'm in. He says, I'll donate wait staff, I'll donate food, you guys take care of the wine and flowers and valet. No problem. 3 weeks later, we have a fundraiser in his backyard with some friends that helped. And we raised $1.3 million on a straight paddle race with 64 people present.
Amazing.
And good people.
I was completely baffled.
All of us were just like, we did what?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And so that gave Jeanne's work the boost it needed at that time. And then through the years, I had to learn about Jeanne's work really fast and be able to explain it to donors and how to explain what a stem cell is, how to explain their functions and what they can and cannot do, and be able to field a multitude of questions. And if you don't have the answers, no one's going to believe in what you're doing. So anyway, learned that, and as best I could. And we ended up raising a little over $3 million over the next 4 years. And then when her studies, she'd come to us and tell us, this is what we need, and we'd go to work at it. Well, she started coming to us with bigger numbers and bigger numbers. And so we thought, I don't know if we can keep up with this. So we talked about at that time starting a for-profit. And we eventually spun the license for the IP out of Scripps Institute into Summit, and then transferred into Aspen Neuroscience, which is a for-profit that Jeanne started. And it's been uphill ever since. And the research, her work has not disappointed me, is a way to put it, or failed in my eyes in any way. I mean, she's got it. That's all I got to say. She is I know what I've been looking at. And anyway, she's delivering hope to people when there was none.
And I think one of the things that frustrates people the most when they have these conditions is when they are actively searching and they're not finding hope, or they're going to talk to people and they're hearing some disparaging things or whatever, because hope can make people walk. I mean, hope can bring people back. I mean, it's amazing the way that your ability to manifest, that energy, when you have that positive energy, it manifests. People just look better, right? Like, I mean, literally, you can study that. Like, you can say, that's a bad mood, that's a good mood. The skin looks better, it flushes a certain way. It's amazing what that can do. So to finding that hope, and I'm really glad you found, and obviously, this is something, would you say, that every single day drives you forward? Is the push to help people with Parkinson's?
Pushes both of us forward.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yes. That's a resounding.
I definitely want to get to the NASA question because that's fascinating, and it kind of came up at the end. But so this is phase 1. This is the preliminary data. Maybe as far as that, is there, once you get to the next phase, is there a certain number of people that you plan on putting in there? Does it go from that number to, let's say, 30 or 50 or something like that?
It'll be something. That's all.
It'll be something more, depending on funding.
And all of this is
details
negotiated.
To come.
Yeah, all this is negotiated with the FDA too, to make sure that they're going to be happy. I mean, the great thing about the FDA is you say, we want to do this, and then they say, let's think about it. And then they come back and say, that sounds fine to us. And then you're in. You can do it exactly the way that you planned it. If they don't like what you said, then they'll come back and say, why don't you think of a different thing to do? I mean, they're
very cordial.
Very
is what
cordial.
You're saying?
Yeah, they're very nice. They really want us to succeed.
They let you down easy, just in case. You've done some.
And I think a lot of this has to do with the interaction with the FDA. It, for me, is personal, whereas I know with big companies, they probably hire somebody to interact with the FDA. It's much less effective because they're people at the FDA, and the people will listen, and if you can talk to them one-on-one, it's so much better than this sort of arm's length that a lot of companies have with them.
I mean, that's amazing. You're absolutely right. When they're coming to you saying, hey, Jeanne, we want to sit down with you, and we want you to tell us what's next in stem cells and Parkinson's disease, that's a good place, to be in. And you were there too, right? And you went and you said you were really nervous because you're really calm, right? I mean, you're as cool as a cucumber here.
We've done this a little while now, but that was my first speaking. It was, I was chosen as one of 5 people to represent Parkinson's disease. I had to write an essay. I wrote it, rewrote it. I won't tell all the details, but I rewrote it a few times and sent it in. Thought, I'll never hear back, and I get chosen, and off I go.
Yeah, they invited us both. I think that was the first time we had sort of not exactly a joint appearance, but we were in the same room.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you,
terrified.
Patients. I mean, just patient stories and patient involvement goes such a long way. And you're absolutely right, because they're people. There are people there. It's not AI yet.
It puts a
No,
face
it's
with
not
it.
Not
AI
AI.
yet.
It might be AI to first get in the door, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
but it's people.
Yeah.
It puts a face to the disease.
Let's talk about, and again, we'll kind of wrap it up with the NAS because it's really fascinating, obviously. What's your biggest frustration as far as getting your message out? Would you say? Because I know that, again, like the Brain Mapping Society is
that's
very
a good
excited to promote. We already were talking about having an entire room going for 4 days next time, just dedicated specifically to Parkinson's research and all the great stuff that's going on.
That would be wonderful.
You've got to be. I mean, you seem so pleasant and have, but I know every researcher I know that's doing great things, they all have frustrations about
Yeah.
getting the word out, or competing interests, or you feel like maybe the money's not being allocated to the right place. I would say, what would be the biggest?
All these things,
Everything.
things. But really, it doesn't matter. Honestly, there's a way through. You just have to be.
Yep.
Just have to keep doing it, and there are ways through all these issues. You just, in one way doesn't work, you try something else, and that's why we couldn't start this project. I couldn't get a grant from the NIH to start this work. I couldn't even get a grant from CERM, which is a stem cell agency, to start this work. So the money that she raised
Amazing.
started this work. And
Yep,
then we got
power
more
of the
money
people.
after that. And then when I did the fundraising to start the company, it was so easy. I mean, it was just like everybody thought this is the perfect time for this. This is the right project. We're in. But, things have changed. It's been like 6 years or so, and the whole, but a way will be found through. Let me put it that way. I mean, nobody's giving up on this. It's the investment already, but still, it's such a straightforward idea. It's hard when you say things like this. The investors say, "It sounds really great. Just tell me how you do it." And once they hear the information, they say, "I see no downside to this at all."
Well, you know what? There is no downside. Again, we don't know where this until you do the big reveal. We'll call it the big reveal here in March.
Yeah.
You already gave you gave enough of a hint of what's going on, subtly. But
I couldn't not.
it's going to be good, but before we do all that, even if there's a hurdle or something like that, it's that attitude. It's just like having that positive, we're going to get through it. And there's going to be frustrations for all of us when we do things, right?
Absolutely.
Like, me as a surgeon, there's certain techniques, there's other things, and we pick it up and we're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then I tell my colleagues and they're like, that doesn't do anything. Like right away, right? But I know that.
I know that.
This is science because we're humans and we have our
Yeah.
biases and we're in our silos. And that's why doing stuff like this has just kind of changed the way I think. It's like my net is so much bigger now because I just want to hear what people have to say. Things I might not have wanted to hear 5 years ago because I was so busy, doing a beeline to the things that I wanted to do. But I'm like, wait a minute, these people are doing like groundbreaking stuff. Why are we not all chatting and having these conversations? Constantly?
You have to take chances. You have to be brave. You have to convince people. You have to do really, really good science. You have to have really good partners. I mean, all those things, and probably more, are really important. I had been in biotech before, which was a real advantage, because I wasn't a classic, I have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world sort of academic. And so finding the investors, I had connections already. So it was so much easier than I think. It was easier than I thought it would be.
Sometimes I wonder if it was easy because it's right.
Well, that too. It
know
made
what I mean?
sense. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It made sense.
It definitely
it's
makes
such a
sense.
simple
Yeah.
story. We're not talking about like 4 steps. We're talking about this put into that, right?
Yeah, pretty, and honestly, what you guys have done is amazing, and I think just the story gives other people hope that the things they're working on, maybe they can find a way to break through. Maybe they can find a Jenifer to get them that first $1 million, because there's people that can't get $10,000 to get
that's
going,
right.
and they have really great ideas. They just can't get that right spark or that right energy, even though
Or
their
explaining
hearts
it in the right way.
Exactly.
And you have to listen to people and understand what it is they know and what they don't know. I mean, all this stuff is so obvious, but if you listen to people, you will realize what you need to tell them. I mean, it's that simple.
It becomes it kind of manifests itself. So as we close out, I got to ask you, and I think it's public because you
It
kind of
is,
mentioned
yeah.
it, but you get this big grant from NASA. What's that all about? What are you doing? And let me ask you, are you going up there?
No.
You're
but
not going up there
not
with the
myself.
cells? No, you're not going to go
But
up
my
there.
cells are going up there, and they have been up there already. So, really short story. So the NASA is a lot of interest in biology. And so they had a series of grants. This is the way I get into grants this time, to try to figure out what happens to astronauts' brains in space. What if we want to go to Mars? How can we get all the information that we need to find out whether it's even worthwhile? So because of stem cells, my colleagues and I came up with a scheme in which we made these little tiny representations of the human brain. And when I say tiny, I mean like 0.5 millimeter across. But they have the right kinds of neurons in them. So we made neuron, and these are iPS cells. We can make anything out of them, right? So we made the part of the brain that makes dopamine. We made the part of the brain that is affected in MS, and we are making the part of the brain that is affected in Alzheimer's disease going forward. So we've got these tiny, tiny little balls of cells with nerve cells in them. They're connecting with each other, and are very brain-like. We send them up to space, which is, it's so full of new surprises. But I got to go and watch the rockets take off. I got to bring my family to watch the rockets take off. She's been there to watch the rocket take off in Cape Canaveral.
Yep.
And our experiments go up, and then they come back a month later, and then we analyze.
It's so fun.
And we analyze the cells we send up and find out what happened, right? And we have a control that's on the ground. So what we found in our first couple of flights, we've had 6 altogether now. A couple of them didn't work so well. So let's say 4. Really.
Okay.
All sorts of amazing things that go wrong. I mean, even like when they decide, once we had a mission to have a rocket go up, and then they postpone it for a month. And here we were with our cells all ready to go, right? So we said, let's change the experiment because we can't do anything about this. We're just going to take advantage of it and learn what we can. Anyway, so when they came back, we discovered that the neurons that we had sent up, they're kind of baby neurons, they grew older, or they developed faster in space than they did on the ground. We just published a paper on that, a scientific paper on that. Yeah, and we don't really know why, but now we have 3 more missions planned with this new NASA grant. I'm starting a new lab, which is off campus because I won't even go into it. What universities require is we can't give them. So it has to be an independent, sort of like with biotech companies.
Okay.
But it's a nonprofit. And we're going to send these things up 3 more times and learn. We're going to give them drugs in space and see how
So you're giving the brains drugs.
Yeah, the
in
little
space.
tiny
Brain
baby
cells.
brains, yes.
Are they now you're just doing parts of the brain?
Yes.
So those brains are not, they don't have like
They're
a
not connected to anybody
like
else.
a neocortex
No.
or anything else.
No.
Like
No.
there's not
No, these are like, we isolate parts of the brain that are normally connected.
Because there was a science fiction movie. I don't know if you saw it, but the guy decided to send they took his brain out and they just sent his brain up in space. I don't remember. It was a series. The problem is the rocket went the wrong way, and they found a way to make this the brain survive for hundreds of thousands of years. He's just floating out there. So when I think about that, I can't sleep
I know,
at
and
night
so
because his brain is still floating away. So I just want to make sure
I
that
need
those
to
brains
tell you.
they're just parts, not
Yeah,
those parts.
no, they're not
bundles of
really
cells.
coherent. No, and they can't see and they can't think. But I did get to, because I have a stem cell lab. We had made my own stem cells, my own induced pluripotent stem cells a long time ago. And so we figured we have controls as well as people with Parkinson's disease, people with MS. So we decided that I was going to be one of the controls. So my own stem cells made into neurons have been to space.
They're out there, and you're not having visions
I'm
of
not,
space.
I have no
on the Earth.
connection with
Okay.
them whatsoever.
That's
But it's really, I mean, it's cool that I get to do that.
Super. I mean, it's that's absolutely fascinating. You went to the rocket launches as well?
I did.
That's awesome.
And
That's fantastic.
one thing that's interesting to me about this project is that it started with a collaborative effort from 5 different organizations, and that's just not done. And it was great. It was us, Summit, and it was the New York Stem Cell Foundation, the National Stem Cell Foundation, the ISS and NASA.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
So
Everybody
luckily we
working
get
together.
to move forward. It looks like it's going to happen.
that's
It's pretty fun.
that's amazing. Just last question, because you just piqued my interest. Now we're talking space medicine.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
okay.
whole
It's
other.
It's a nice place to evolve to.
So
yeah.
if those cells are getting older faster, are we concerned that
No.
if we send the astronauts to Mars, that they're going to come back and age faster?
Who knows? However,
I'm just.
no, I understand, and that's
Because if I volunteer
Yeah.
for the Mars mission, I don't want to come back. It takes long.
But you'll be
enough,
really
I'm not-
happy.
I'll be happy. Okay.
So it's really important to know that these started out as baby neurons. They got more mature in space, faster than on ground. But they are by no means adult neurons, and you don't really age until you are born, right?
Yeah.
So we're still talking about like early childhood. You're not getting
So
older
you're still
very
in
fast.
that. It's not like they just keep getting older
No,
and they're
no.
coming
And we
back,
don't really
like-
have a way of measuring age. I mean, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Longevity, that's the problem with longevity research, is there's every part of your brain, or every part of your body ages at a different rate. And age takes different manifestations depending on what you're talking about, right? So that is really challenging. But we do not know that they get older in space. They just develop further in space.
We have one shot at this thing, and if you have an opportunity to do something that's so, it's just like you don't have this chance again.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to do? I mean, everyone thinks different. Other people would never even get on a rocket ever.
And
I'm
you know,
like,
the
I'd
thing that
volunteer to go to Mars.
yeah, and the thing that bothers me is that I think I'm one of those people who would end up throwing up forever the whole time I was on the space station. I mean, I don't like roller coasters, and so I know I'm not physically a great choice. And so sending my cells up is like, I think, as far as I'm going to get.
Well, maybe you send me
But
up
they're
there
having
and
a great
I'll-
time.
I'll babysit
Yeah,
the
you
cells.
can
I'll
feed-
babysit
yeah,
the cells.
yeah.
I'll
Look
hang out
after
on
the cells
the
and take
space
pictures
station
of them and stuff,
For a
yeah.
little, I'll take pictures.
Yeah.
And I'll show
Yeah.
you the brains,
Yeah.
how they're
Yeah.
all coming
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
So.
I've got never mind.
Well, it's been great having you guys on. This is amazing, Jeanne, Jenifer. Honestly, this is great. I think that the audience is going to soak this stuff up. I think maybe they'll have a little bit of nightmares with the little brains going on into space.
Well,
but we'll
because
get
my
there.
brain's up there, it's really
brain-
okay.
that's
I'm
fine.
fine. I'm fine.
That's fantastic. So thanks for everything you're doing. You're giving people hope all over the world, and I hope that this goes as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And I look forward to reporting on your results as soon as they come
Yeah.
out, and can't wait because I mean many of my patients have Parkinson's, and something like this would. What an impact it would completely change everything
Yeah.
for them.
And I think
Changes everything.
even knowing about it is going to help them.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is possible.
Knowing that it's out there,
Yeah.
because again, hope drives us forward. Having
Yeah.
a mission, and that mission just might be, I want to get better, or I want other people to
Yeah,
get better.
exactly.
That have what I have. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank
and
you.
we hope to see
It's
you
a
guys
pleasure.
really,
Yeah.
really soon. And have a safe trip back to San Diego.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
guys.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
you.
you.